So this is something very commonly used at an organization level. Load balancing. So definitely, if you have AWS, then load balancing is something you will definitely end up using. Okay. What we'll do is, now we have one last topic pending in your EC2, which is your auto scaling. So we will be looking at that, and that should complete your EC2 service for us. All right. So let me quickly share my screen. Give me a minute. Mm, Okay, so auto scaling can be used whenever you want to scale up your instances or you want to scale down your instances. Now, you have this very common scenario wherein, let's say, for example, as of now, you have 10 servers. Okay, you're running your applications on these 10 servers. Now, suddenly, let's say the load on the servers has increased, right? So there's too much of load, and that is affecting the overall performance of your applications. So one approach you have is you can manually go and increase the number of servers, right? You can maybe add two more servers or three more servers. Now let's say that will handle the traffic. Now again, after some time, let's say the traffic has reduced. Again, you'll have to go and destroy some of those servers which are no longer utilized. Now this becomes a manual process. So based on you know when the load is increasing, you are going to manually increase the servers, and when the load is less, you are going to manually decrease the servers. Now we can automate that process by making use of your auto scaling groups, which is based on certain conditions. Your auto scaling groups will automatically increase the servers or decrease the servers for us. Okay, so this option under your EC2, it enables you to ensure that you have correct number of EC2 instances available to handle the load for your application. So the whole point of this auto scaling group is to make sure your application always has the right number of instances. For example, let's say you need 5 instances or 10 instances or 100 instances, whatever it is. Your auto scaling group is responsible for making sure you always have that right number of instances. So this collection of instances, we call it as your auto scaling groups, right? Now with this, you can specify the minimum number of instances, like let's say minimum as 3. And your auto scaling group will make sure it will always have that number of instances and it will never go below that size. Okay, so if you set to 3 as your minimum, then your auto scaling group will ensure it always has 3 number of instances. Likewise, you can specify a maximum number of instances, and again your auto scaling group will make sure that that is a maximum number it can go. It will not go above that size. Like let's say, for example, your maximum size is set to 20. Okay, now your auto scaling group will can go to a maximum of that number only. You can also specify a desired capacity when you create the group or anytime thereafter. An auto scaling group ensures that your group has that many instances. So desired capacity is irrespective of the load. Okay, I desire to have 5 instances, and again your auto scaling group will ensure that it has that number of instances. So you can also specify a scaling policy, and auto scaling can launch or terminate instances as demand on your application increases or decreases. So there are a couple of ways that you can work with this auto scaling group. One is you can maintain a fixed number of instances irrespective of the load. All right, you always want to have a fixed number of instances, whether the load is high or whether the load is low. you always want, let's say, 3 instances. Your auto scaling group will make sure it always has that 3 instances. And the other is your scaling policies, wherein you'll have a minimum and maximum. So based on the load, it will keep on increasing and decreasing automatically. Make sense?
Yeah.
So with this, ideally, what we do is we specify a minimum size. So minimum size would be, what is the minimum number of instances you want, and the auto scaling group will make sure that it has that minimum size. You can also specify a maximum capacity. So when it is going to scale up, it will never go above that maximum size. You can also specify a desired capacity, which is irrespective of the load. You're telling that, if possible, give me these 2 instances, which is my desired capacity. So your auto scaling group will basically maintain this group of instances. It will automatically scale up, it will automatically scale down based on the load on your application. Now with this, there are two components you'll have. One is your auto scaling groups, and then you have your launch configurations. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So here with your, okay, they've changed it. Mm, but one card, one card. Okay. So with this, you have two things. Okay. One is your groups. So groups is basically where you specify how many instances you want, your maximum, minimum, your desired numbers. And then you have your launch configuration. Now, say in this case, your auto scaling group is going to increase the instances or decrease the instances for us, right? So now let's say when it is going to increase the instances, how does my auto scaling group know which AMI to use, which instance type to use, which security group to use, which key pair to use, right? All that information we provide it in the launch configuration. So whenever my auto scaling group is going to increase the number of instances, it will make use of this launch configuration, which is like a template. Okay, it's a blueprint that it will use. And whatever the information you have given in this launch configuration, it will use that and launch the instances for us. Okay, so your groups, your EC2 instances are organized into groups so that they can be treated as a logical unit for the purpose of scaling and management. And when you create a group, you can specify the maximum, minimum, and the desired number of EC2 instances. And then you have the launch configuration. So your group uses a launch configuration as a template. Okay, so it's basically a blueprint of the configuration. So what configuration you want to use when launching the instance. Okay, so it uses it as a template for its EC2 instances. And when you create a launch configuration, you specify information such as your AMI ID, instance type, key pair, security group, and block device mapping for your instances. Okay, so here when you on your EC2 dashboard on the left hand side, here you can see auto scaling, and here you have the auto scaling group. So you can click on create auto scaling groups. You can give it a name, and you can also make use of this launch template, or you can make use of the launch configuration. Okay, so AWS recommends that make use of the launch template. Now, launch template is also same as your launch configuration. So here under your EC2, you should be able to see your launch templates. So let's create one launch template for this. So again, like I said, launch template is nothing but it's your configuration. What details you want as part of your instance. So you give it a name, and you can add tags to this. So let's say improve, and you basically select your AMI. You select your instance type. We will go with e2.micro. You select your key pair, your firewall, your volume. So by default, we will get this 8 GB. So we will leave it to that. Here you have the option of adding your tags. And what all resources it is applicable. So in my case, I want this to be applicable to all the resources. And then here you have the advanced details. Now, so in the last session, we discussed about your, or in one of the sessions, we had discussed about your user data, right? So what do you remember about the user data?
It will automatically run the script.
Yeah,
Boot
so
script.
correct. So it's your boot up script, right? So if you want to automate certain commands, like if you want, like, let's say, install, deploy an application automatically, we can make use of your user data. So here, what we will be doing is we will make use of this user data such that whenever my auto scaling group is launching a new instance, I want it to automatically deploy an application as well. Okay, so so here I'm writing a shell script because it is a Linux machine portal. So I will install HTTP. So this is same commands that we had discussed in one of the session. So sudo yum install HTTPD. Then we will go to this where the HTML folder. Here we are going to do this. So sudo echo. Uh, um, this is an example for auto scaling group, and I want to write this to where the HTML/lex.html file, and then sudo service httpd start. Okay, so basically I'm installing httpd service. I'm creating the index.html file, and then I'm starting the httpd service. So every time my auto scaling group will launch a new instance, I'm telling it to execute these instructions on that new instance, so that I will automatically get my application. Now you can use this for any instructions. Well, let's say you have a customized application, you can automatically deploy that by making use of this user data. Okay, and then we will click on create launch template. Now this will not launch any instances, this will just create a blueprint. So the advantage of this is that, let's say you want to launch an instance, so instead of going through all the steps again and again, so let's say every time you launch the instance, you have the same configuration, so same AMI, same instance type, same key pair, same security group. So instead of manually doing this, we can simply create a blueprint. And then I can simply use this and quickly launch an instance from here. So this will save me some time. Now this is what we call it as a launch configuration or your launch template. And we can use this in my auto scaling groups. So here, yeah,
So
sorry.
one question, so like, how it is different from custom AMI? Like, custom AMI, like, we had pre-installed many of the required things, right? So
Yeah,
instead of custom,
yeah,
is
so
it
see, with your custom AMI, you're only customizing the OS.
okay?
But still, you'll have to select the instance type, the security groups, the key pairs, the storage. You still have other components that you'll have to manually select. Now, here what we are doing is we are basically creating a template for all the components. So here I have my OS, I have
Okay.
my storage, I have my security group, I have my key pairs, I have my instance, and everything is readily available for me.
Yeah.
And I can quickly go ahead and launch instance. So
Uh,
AMI is just one part of this.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the required, like, Java and all, it can be pre-installed, like, before it's in.
I mean, you can create a custom AMI for that, and you can use that. I mean, you can add that in this template. So as of now, you can see here we are using the AMI, right?
Yeah.
So you can create your custom AMI and you can use that. Now, in addition to that custom AMI, we are also providing the instance type, the security
Yeah.
group, the key pair, and all these details, right?
Okay.
So again, like I said, AMI is just one part of this.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. So now we'll go to the auto scaling group and we'll create an auto scaling group. Let's give it a name, and whatever the launch template you've created, you should be able to see that here. Okay, so that's the launch template, and you get to review what all details you have. You're okay with this? Click on next, and your network. So as of now, we are going with the default network. Availability zone would be basically in which availability zone you want to launch this instance. So let's say yours is 1A and 1B, and which template you're using, your instance type, all these details. Now, you also have the option of integrating this with a load balancer. So generally at an organization level, what happens is, like I said, you will definitely have a load balancer. Okay. And behind your load balancers, you'll have your instances. Now, on top of this load balancer, you'll have your auto scaling group. So what will happen is, whenever your auto scaling group is launching new instances, it will add it to the load balancer, right? So load balancer knows that there are new instances. So here you have the option of integrating your load balancer with auto scaling. Now this is optional, but we will utilize this. So you can see here, you can either create a new load balancer or you can attach an existing one. Now in our case, we'll go with an existing one. And what is the, so choose from your load balancer target groups. And remember in the last session, we created a load balancer target group. This is that one. So what I'm telling here is every time my auto scaling group will launch a new instance, add that instance to my target group. Okay. Okay, this is a new option to improve the networking capabilities. So we'll just go with whatever we have. Health checks would be whatever you have defined in your target group, and then turn on elastic load balancing health checks. So we are telling do the health check for the load balancing as well, and then click on next. So this previous step is basically integrating with your load balancer. Next is specifying your group size. So we'll see two examples. One is your fixed number of instances, and then we'll also look at your scaling policies. So first we'll look at your fixed number of instances. So this is where you can specify your desired capacity, minimum capacity, and maximum capacity. So let's say I'll set this as 4. Minimum is 4 and maximum is 4. So what I'm telling here is I'm giving it a fixed capacity. So I'm telling no matter what the load is, no matter what the condition is, I want to have 4 instances. Okay, so this one will come back in some time. Next, you also have the option of adding notifications. So we'll talk about your notifications later on. But let's say you have this service called SNS, which can be used to trigger out notifications. So let's say whenever there's a new instance launched or a new instance terminated or an instance failed to launch or an instance failed to terminate, you can send out an email notification. Like let's say you want to receive a notification whenever auto scaling group will launch a new instance or it will terminate an instance. You can make use of this SNS service to send out the notification. So we will be talking more on this service later on, but that's the usage of your SNS service. And then next, you can add your tags. So let's say this will be my fixed instances demo. Next, you get to review everything and then click on create auto scaling group. Now what this will do is this will launch 3 new instances for me. 4 new instances for me. So okay. Let's wait for this. Maybe it is taking some time. Yeah, so you can see 4 instances. Let's go and check this. Yeah, so you can see here fixed instances demo. Now because of the capacity that I have defined, my auto scaling group is managing these instances. Now you may have a question that, okay, I have 10 instances here. How do I know which instances are managed by auto scaling group and which are instances that are not managed by auto scaling group? So if you go to the respective auto scaling groups, under the auto scaling group, you can go to the activity and or under this instance management, and you should be able to see the instance IDs. So these are the instances which are managed by auto scaling group, and any instances that are not part of these auto scaling groups are not managed by your auto scaling groups. So now I have my instances launched, and remember we have created a boot up script that will take a few seconds to execute. But ideally, if that is executed, I should be able to automatically see this. So all the 4 instances will have that. Any questions until here?
No.
No.
So you can see this is what I had given in my boot up script. So this one, and it has executed it. Now, let's say for some reason, or let's say accidentally, someone terminated two instances. So just for the sake of example, let's see now what will happen. Now, this is where your auto scaling group can be really useful. Now, because of the capacity that I have defined here, because I've said desired is 4, minimum is 4, maximum is 4, what will happen is my auto scaling group will get to know that two instances are down. So here under instance management, you can see unhealthy, and it will immediately launch new instances to make sure it has this specified capacity. So here you can see there's a new instance coming up, and it will launch one more instance. So it does one after the other. So this will be the third instance. And again, it will get to know that the fourth instance is also down, and it will launch one more instance for it. That's the advantage of your auto scaling. So this way, you don't have to manually worry about managing the instances. You don't have to manually take care of this. Your auto scaling group will automatically manage these instances for us, and whatever the app we have, you can add it in the user data that will automatically deploy the application for us. So this is one way to work with your auto scaling groups, where you can specify a fixed capacity. So irrespective of the load, always want that specified number of instances. Your auto scaling group will maintain it. Questions?
No.
No.
Okay, just waiting for the fourth instance to come up. For some reason, it says 4 as healthy. Just let's give me a moment. Sorry. Okay, sorry guys. So yeah, so now you can see the other instance also. Some auto scaling group found out that the other instance is also terminated. It will remove it from here, and it will launch a new instance for me. So now I have 4 instances running. Okay, this is your fixed capacity. Questions? Okay. Now, when you're working with this, please keep one thing in mind. Don't terminate the instances from here. Your auto scaling group will keep on launching new instances. If you want to terminate the instances, just go ahead and delete this auto scaling group, and that will delete all the instances. Okay, so until you have this auto scaling group, your instances will be created automatically. So if I delete this group, this will terminate all the instances that are part of that auto scaling group. Yes, all these 4 instances will be terminated for me. Okay, so this is one example. The other example is your scaling policy. So scaling policy is now here we have a fixed capacity. Now, fixed capacity is good to a certain extent, but what if the load is more? Now, your 4 instances are not sufficient. Then what do we do? Now that's where your second scenario comes in, your scaling policies, wherein you can give a condition. And if that condition is true, your auto scaling group will increase automatically increase the instances, and if the condition is false, it will automatically terminate your instances. Okay, so that's the example we are looking at. So this will get destroyed automatically, so we'll give it some time. Now we look at your second example. So we'll go again, we'll go to this create auto scaling group, and let's call this as scaling policy. We'll use the same template. Next, we'll select our availability zones, and then next, again, we can integrate this with the load balancer if you want. If not, you can leave it. That's really up to you. And then check this. And now here we'll give the capacity. So let's say desired is 1, minimum is 1, and then let's say maximum is 5. So you're giving a range as to how many instances you want. So I'm telling minimum, I want 1 instances, and maximum, I want 5 instances. And we are going to make use of this target tracking scaling policy. Okay. And what do you want to target? So you want to look at the CPU utilization, or your load balancer count, or your network load. What do you want to monitor? So in our case, we're going to monitor the CPU utilization. So let's say, just for the sake of example, my target value is 10. So whenever my CPU utilization is at 10, if it is above 10, I want to automatically increase this capacity. And if it is below 10, I want to decrease the instances. Okay. So next, again, you can add notifications. You get to review this. So let's say scaling example. Next, we review everything, and then click on create auto scaling group, and this will also launch the instance. So as of now, the capacity is, the instances I've specified is, you can see 1, right? So let's wait for this one. So yeah, so this is my scaling example. This one is still taking time, so I'll have to wait. Okay. Let me just filter this so it's easier to. So I have one instance. Now this instance, we will be the auto scaling, sorry, the user data, whatever I have defined, that will get executed. So I'll give it some time. Sometimes it may take some time to execute. So we'll give it some time, but ideally the user data, whatever we have, that will get executed. Let's wait for that to complete. Refreshing this. Now, what we will do is we will manually try putting the load on that server. So we will, manually go and put more load on that server, and let's see what my auto scaling group will do. So the condition we have defined here, if you look at the scaling policy, so this automatic, or the automatic scaling, you can see this is what we have defined. So as required to maintain average CPU utilization at 10. Okay. So add or remove units capacity as required. So what we are telling here is maintain an average capacity of 10. If it's more than this, add more instances. If it's less than that, remove instances. So this becomes my scaling policy, which will automatically scale up and scale down based on the load on my server. So as of now, we have only one instance. So let's refresh this. Come on, that's taking some time. Okay, let's quickly log into this instance and see what is happening. So let's go to this and see. Okay, so I have my file. Let's check the status of the service. And this is also running from 1 minute. So what happened? showing it. Just a minute. I'm sure that. Okay. So sure, we have it. All right. Now, yeah. So you can see this one fixed instances. All the instances are terminated. Okay. So let me just filter out the running instances. So I have only one instance. Now what we will do is we will manually increase the load on the server. So we are going to do an infinite loop. So here, this last one that you see, I'm going to run this command, which will create an infinite loop on the server. Okay, which will again put the load on the server. So as of now, if you go to this monitoring, you can see the CPU utilization here. The data is not yet available. So what? Let's do one thing. Let's try putting the load on the server. So what are we doing here is so what are we doing here is while true, do wget. So wget is a Linux command. So we are telling that hit this. Okay, so here we'll give the server IP. So in my case, this will be the server IP. So this will start an infinite loop for me. Okay, so this is an infinite loop that we are doing here. Now what this will do is this will start putting the load on my server. And remember the condition that we have set. So we have said that check for the CPU utilization. So we are looking for an average of 10. If the CPU utilization is more, I want to add more instances to this. So this one, so what will happen is here, so you can see my instance immediately it has come up. Why? Because the load is too much. You can see this one, it has gone to 12. Let me get this out. So here you can see this is at 11.72, which is more than 10. And because of that, my auto scaling group has launched a new instance. So this becomes your scale up. My auto scaling group is scaling up, right? Likewise, if the load is less, it will scale down and it will come down to the minimum. Whatever the minimum number I have defined, it will come down to that. This is your scaling policy. So this is how you can make use of your auto scaling groups to automatically scale up and scale down of your instances. Questions until here?
No.
Okay, so now what I will do is I'll
No,
stop
no.
infinite loop. Okay, so I'll stop this infinite loop. Okay, and let's give it some time, and we'll come back and see what is happening. So as of now, it is showing me 2 instances. So let's wait and come back at a later point. Okay, so what are the benefits of your auto scaling loop? So one is your fault tolerance. So auto scaling can detect when an instance is unhealthy, terminate it, and launch an instance to replace it. You get better availability. So auto scaling group can help you to ensure that your application always has the right amount of capacity to handle the current traffic demand. So if the load is more, it will make sure it always has that right number of instances. If the load is less, it will always have the right number of instances. And then your better cost management. So auto scaling can dynamically increase and decrease capacity as needed. Because you pay for the EC2 instances you use, you save money by launching instances when they are actually needed and terminating them when they are not needed. Okay, so you're only going to launch the instances when you actually need it. And if you don't need the instances, your auto scaling group will terminate it. That way, you'll only pay the money when you're using it. Okay, so that's your auto scaling groups. That pretty much completes your EC2 service. So again, EC2 service is a very important service we have, and all the topics that we have covered here is something that you will definitely end up working on a day-to-day basis, and you can expect a lot of questions from all the topics that I have covered. So try to do the assignments that I've shared, try to do that, try to do the hands-on as much as possible, and only then you will get an understanding of it. Okay. So give me 2 minutes. We'll wait for this to terminate. I want to show how it goes down, and then we will start an introduction to your new service. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so this is for the scale up, all right? Because at the time when the load was more, my auto scaling group went ahead and it has increased the capacity, which is a maximum of 5. Okay, you can see it has only 5 instances. It did not go above that. Now, because the load I have stopped this infinite loop, right? Whatever I was running, so my load will gradually reduce. Okay, so the CPU utilization will gradually reduce, and then my auto scaling group will start terminating the instances for me. So here, if I go to this EC2, you will see the CPU utilization. So you can see this is still at so now you can see here it has come down. Okay, so let me expand this. So let's last 1 hour. So you can see this one. It had gone up and then it gradually it has come down. So now my auto scaling group will start terminating these instances. So it will scale down basically. So this is the advantage of your auto scaling groups, which can be used to scale up and scale down your EC2 instances to automatically handle the load of your instances. Any questions, guys, until here?
No.
No, no, all good.
Okay, so that completes your EC2 service. So once again, it's a very important service, and try to spend as much of time as possible on this. The next service we are going to look at is your CloudWatch. So we have less time, but we'll just do an introduction on it. So your at any point when we talk about monitoring in AWS, so CloudWatch is a service we are using for that. Okay, so CloudWatch is a monitoring service. So you can use this to monitor your metrics, your logs, the availability, all those things can be monitored by making use of your CloudWatch service. So once again, at any point when we are talking about monitoring, CloudWatch is a service that we have. So here also you can see when we talk about these instances, you have this monitoring. So by default, monitoring is integrated. So here you can see monitoring like you have your CPU utilization, status checks, network in, network out, disk reads, disk writes, credit usage. So all these informations are available. So all this is coming from your CloudWatch. So at any point in AWS, when we talk about your monitoring, CloudWatch is a service that we are using. Samsung CloudWatch helps you to monitor your AWS resources and the applications that you're going to run on AWS. And all of these can be monitored in real time. So here you can see this is all your real time information, right? So you can monitor that. So you can use CloudWatch to collect and track metrics like your CPU, memory, and all those things, which are nothing but your variables you can use to measure your resources and applications. The homepage, so the CloudWatch homepage automatically displays metrics about every AWS service you use. Uh, so you can search for CloudWatch, and if you go to that service, by default on the home page, depending on the services you are using, it will show you at a high level. It will show you the resource utilization. So you can see here ALB, HTTP code, CloudWatch logs, EC2 dashboard. So all these are available by default. Now, if you want to create your own custom metrics, you can do that also. So you can additionally create custom dashboards to display metrics about your custom applications and display custom collections of metrics that you choose. So in addition to this, if you want to create your own custom metrics, we can do that. Also, you can create your own custom dashboards. And within that custom dashboards, you can monitor whatever you want. So in this case, it is monitoring your servers, this is your storage, this is your load balancers, all these are getting monitored over here. All right. You can also create alarms that watch metrics and send notifications or automatically make changes to the resources you're monitoring when a threshold is breached. So you can also set up a notification. So let's say, for example, the CPU utilization. Now, if the CPU utilization is at 80%, you want to get notified about it. You can set up alarms for that. You can also automate to take some actions. So we'll talk more on that later on, but that's pretty much what your CloudWatch can do for you. Now, for example, you can monitor CPU usage and disk reads and writes of your EC2 instances and then use that data to determine whether you should launch additional instances to handle the increased load or not. You can also use this to stop underused instances to save money. So with this CloudWatch service, you gain system-wide visibility into the resource utilization, application performance, and the overall operational health of your applications and the services. All right. So you can access CloudWatch using console, CLI, API, and SDKs. You can also make use of CloudWatch events to send system events from AWS resources to Lambda functions, SNS topics, Kinesis strips, and other target types. You can also make use of your CloudWatch logs to monitor, store, and access your log files from Amazon EC2 instances, AWS Cloud Trial, or other sources. So there are many things that you can do. We will be looking at some of these. Now, by default, whenever we talk about your CloudWatch monitoring, we have two types of monitoring. We have the basic monitoring, and then we have the detailed monitoring. Okay. Now, basic monitoring is the default one, and this is free to use. This is chargeable. You'll have to pay money for this. Now, this basic monitoring, it runs every 5 minutes, meaning the metrics gets refreshed every 5 minutes. Detailed monitoring, your metric gets refreshed every 1 minute. By default, whatever you're seeing over here, this is your basic monitoring. Okay, so here your metrics gets refreshed every 5 minutes. But if you want detailed monitoring, you can enable it, but it's just that you'll have to pay additional money for this. Okay, and yeah, so we have two types of monitoring. You have the basic monitoring, and then you have the detailed monitoring. Basic monitoring is free to use, and detailed monitoring is chargeable. Okay, any questions?
No.
No, no.
So when you customize the dashboard, so that time is it chargeable?
No, you don't have to pay money for creating the dashboards. It's just that you're pulling the metrics. That's it. You don't have to pay money for the dashboards.
Okay.
But it depends on how, when do you want to refresh this metrics.
Okay.
That's where your charge will come in. Like, say, as of now, this one, it gets refreshed every 5 minutes, meaning the metrics gets collected every 5 minutes.
Okay.
But if you're like, let's say it's a very sensitive application, it's a very critical application, then you can go with every 1 minute, but you just have to pay some extra money for that.
Yeah, got it.
I'm waiting for this to come down, and what the feeling is a bit slow, but yeah, I mean, ideally the expectation is that, this instance management, whatever you have, as of now, it shows 5 instances. It will go down slowly, one by one, the instances will get dominated, and it will go down to the minimum that I have, which is 1. So yeah, tomorrow we'll talk more. So I'll show you how you can create dashboards, your alarms, how you can capture your application logs, all those things we will see tomorrow. Okay. If there's anything for today, let me know. If not, then I'll see you guys tomorrow then.
Sure.
All right. I think this will take some time. But yeah, and ideally all the instances will go down and you'll have only 1 instances.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, guys. So I'll see you tomorrow then. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.